It's 18 minutes to 9. What is going on with Brexit? We left the European Union, but we are not, it seems, doing all the things that we said we would do with our newfound freedom. Controls on plant and animal products coming into the UK are being pushed back, and a new safety mark designed to show products are safe to use seems to have been quietly ditched. Let us talk to Professor Anand Menon, who is Professor of European Politics and Foreign Affairs at King's College London. Good morning to you.
Morning, Justin. How are you?
I'm good, thanks. Talk about the borders, first of all. What was it that we thought was planned to happen this year? What would it have done, and why isn't it happening?
Well, there are several stages of the border model that are yet to be implemented. And in October this year, the government was going to bring in the first batch of checks on food and animal products. And in January next year, they were going to bring in the physical checks on those things. These are all things foreseen in the Trade and Cooperation Agreement we've signed with the EU, but the government now have said that they've indefinitely delayed both stages.
Why?
Well, interestingly enough, the government hinted at the fact that it was because of the cost of living crisis and the state of inflation. So there's a sort of implicit acceptance there that bringing these checks in would be damaging in terms of the current inflationary pressures we're facing.
Right, and damaging in that way specifically what? Because they would add to the costs that businesses face. In other words, do you think what has powered this is businesses saying to the government behind the scenes, don't do it?
Absolutely. Businesses have been putting pressure on government for years now to try and mitigate some of the impacts of the new trading arrangements. And so it would seem that the government has finally listened. But I think what's interesting is there is an implicit acceptance here by the government of the fact that putting these new trading arrangements in place would have inflationary impacts. And of course, ministers had previously been quite keen to try and deny this.
The other thing that seems to have happened is this new safety mark for goods to replace the European one has been ditched. Again, is the kind of root cause of that, as you understand it, businesses saying it's a waste of our effort trying to meet its standard?
Well, it hasn't exactly been ditched, but what's happened is the government has said that they will continue to accept the EU mark for products coming in and not insist that goods coming in are certified with the new UK standard. So the British standard is still there. The question is who will actually use it, because British firms have up to this point been certifying themselves with the European standard because they need to do that to sell their goods into Europe. So it is a climb down from the initial position, absolutely, in the sense that the UK government is no longer insisting that firms certify with the British standard.
Where does all of this leave Labour, who are not keen to talk about these things when we ask them about them, for understandable political reasons? But, I mean, it does feel as if there is a deal of negotiating to be done, and at some stage someone's going to have to come clean about it.
Well, I mean, Labour have said that they will amend the situation that we have now by, for instance, signing up to certain agreements with the European Union that this government has proved unwilling to. But in some sense, this leaves Labour with a dilemma, because we are legally obliged to bring in the controls on plant and animal products coming into the UK under the terms of the TCA. And in a sense, what the government is doing, if they were to lose the next election, is leaving this as a problem for a new administration.
Yeah, and a political problem too, because on the one hand, you're going to be arguing Brexit's over, we've accepted that we're going to do it, etc. But on the other hand, you're going to have to be saying we have significant things that we have done to ourselves that we've now got to ameliorate.
Absolutely. I think it'll be easier for a Labour government to say that of the deal that Boris Johnson signed. The problem is there's a diplomatic issue here as well, because it's far from clear that the European Union is going to be willing to sit down with us and renegotiate the terms of this deal, thereby making that trade easier.
See, that was going to be my last question to you. Looking at it from the European perspective and looking at us, what are they thinking, and how much of a difficulty is all of this for them, and to what extent might Brussels and indeed might significant European countries also be willing to think again about all of this and to do the kind of deals that might be necessary?
Well, I'd say two things there. Firstly, I think our European partners probably think about us a little bit less than we think they do. That is to say, to a significant extent, they've moved on and are thinking about other issues that they confront now rather than obsessing about Brexit and the relationship with the UK. The second thing is that they are generally quite happy with the deal that they got. They enjoy a surplus in goods trade with us. They have essentially frictionless goods trade under the TCA. We have a surplus in services where the TCA does far less. So it's far from clear that EU member states either have the time or the inclination to sit down with us and say, okay, let's revisit this deal. So it might be that for all the promises that Labour are making of renegotiating the terms of the agreement, that it might prove slightly harder than they think.
Professor Anand Menon, Professor of European Politics at King's College London, thank you very much.